Hi, I'm Jeff Colgan. I'm here with Max Bradley with an update from the Climate Solutions Lab about a new tool for teaching the politics of climate change. Max and I have just finished up a major review of all the political science literature on this topic since about 2017. And as part of that, we developed a framework for thinking about theories of change for how countries or societies could move from fossil fuels to a decarbonized economy. And we want to share three ways that you can use this framework in your teaching. So first up, Max, why don't you tell us a little bit about the framework itself?
Sure, thanks, Jeff. So the idea of the framework is that it works like a conceptual map, which allows us to trace how different theories of change work across the five categories and 22 sub-elements or boxes that we have identified. So the idea here is to move from left to right across the graph you see, starting with climate change as a scientific or physical phenomenon on the left-hand side, and moving across our five categories towards an economy which is ultimately decarbonizing on the right-hand side. So our first category covers different units across society, such as individuals or communities, which are affected by climate change. These units are then organized or mobilized by various conveyors to affect or influence authorities like domestic institutions or international organizations. These authorities then design policies which then affect different sectors of the economy with the ultimate aim of decarbonization. And we think of this as a recursive process which constantly evolves over time, as indicated by the feedback arrows. And finally, we also identify assets and investing as a key dynamic underlying all of these categories and interrelationship. Now, one way you can use our framework is as a heuristic to make sense of the politics of decarbonization and as a way to navigate all the new literature and thus build a syllabus for your climate politics course. Now, next, Jeff will take us through the second use of our framework.
Yeah, so the second way that you can use this map is to think about the implicit theories of change that underlie real-world policies like the Kyoto Protocol from 1998. And that policy was a transnational governance arrangement. So you see that the line passes through that box down at the bottom, but it was also very much focused on market-based policies. So that's another way the line passes through. Um, but one of the weaknesses of the Kyoto Protocol, which ended up coming back to haunt it, was that it was mainly championed by national policies and politicians. And so it didn't necessarily have the kind of political support down to the grassroots level within countries. Second way that policymakers have tried to address climate change is using a carbon tax, right? So adopting a carbon tax. And the idea there is that it would be adapted nationally or even subnationally. So it usually involves domestic institutions. Um, and hopefully this would get the support of at least firms and maybe other units in society. And it's very much a market-based policy. So you can see the path goes through that and then affects all five of the major greenhouse gas emitting sectors in a kind of neutral way, right? So carbon price would be applied and then the market would adjust. But then a third approach historically to doing climate policy was the Green New Deal, as it was at least developed in the United States in 2019 as a congressional legislative effort led by some of the Democrats who were trying to build a social movement that would have support from individuals and voters and unions and place-based communities that would then kind of work together to support not only climate change policy, but a bunch of other things like, good paying jobs and housing benefits. And crucially, this approach relied on industrial policy. So it was not necessarily the carbon tax or cap and trade approaches that had been used in the past, and that meant that it affected the five emission sectors in a more bespoke, tailored way rather than a sort of universal kind of approach. So this really helps students think through the different theories of change that the different policies might adopt. And then Max, maybe you can take us through the third way.
Sure, yeah. So the third way builds on the second way in a sense, but we think that the framework can be used for a more practical teaching app. And so the idea here is basically for students to use the knowledge they've accrued throughout their course on climate politics to illustrate their own ideal type theories of change. And instructors could ask students to do this at the end of the course. They could also ask students to do it at the beginning and at the end of the course to see, for students to be able to see how their ideas around climate politics have changed throughout the course. And we really think that this practical exercise allows students to take a more active role in the course and should help them engage more concretely with debates around climate politics beyond the end of the course as well. And so now I think Jeff will sum up our three use cases.
Right. So the three ways that we hope you can use this is one is as a heuristic for instructors, two as a map for real world policies and theories of change that are associated with them, and then third as a pedagogical tools to get students involved in thinking about their own theories of change. And if you're interested in the research that underlies this whole approach and maybe some of the readings that you might want to assign with any of the 22 boxes in the map, you can look at a paper that we've now released on the Climate Syllabus Bank, and you can see the address at the internet on your screen right now. Thanks for listening, and we hope this is useful to you.